Hi there, I'm Abby. Welcome to Abby's Den. We're going to go through a series of videos actually for this next project. It's quite a big one compared to the other items that I've been making so far. So if you're a beginner, I have been making lots and lots of videos for beginners. Mainly it was targeted at my students that I teach locally, but I've found that I'm reaching a wider community, and many of you are asking for commercial pattern instructions on how to follow commercial patterns. So I've got one here. It's a waistcoat. I'm going to be measuring my husband for this. And I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you how to read the pattern. So on the front, you generally have what attracts you to this pattern. So you have a look at the pictures and you decide, oh yes, I'd like to make something like that. And then they show you the more details on the sketches that they've drawn, and on the back, usually on the back, they show you the back of the garment or the project that you're going to make. There's a lot of detail on the envelope, so there's so much to look at and read and understand, and it's always very difficult to know what should I read first, what should I be looking at, should I be opening this pattern out in the shop, can I return patterns? There's all sorts of questions and lots of doubt in your mind about how to approach a pattern. So let me get rid of some of the fears and let's go through it with you today, because it's quite in-depth. The first video is going to be about preparing the pattern ready to cut out onto the fabric. So let's go through that today. So the first video today will be set on what we need to prepare ourselves to make the pattern that we desire. So now on this pattern, we've got various different versions. So we've got two different versions of the vest or the waistcoat. Now the first one, A, that's A down there. A is one with darts, so it gives you a slimline figure. They both have that, so you can see the markings on there. They both have these welt pockets. Now whether they are going to be just for decoration or whether they actually work, I haven't actually checked that, so we'll find that out shortly. Then they both have 4 buttons on the front, so 4 buttonholes as well. The difference with the top one, so that's A and that's B, the difference between the two is that B has a lapel at the top. This one, A, doesn't. And you can also see that in the photographs that they've taken there. So that's the only difference between the versions A and B. Also included in the pattern, you've got a cummerbund, which is C, and D is a bow tie. They've shown it a couple of times, don't know why. And then you've got E, again shown a couple of times, and that's the tie. So you can make a whole matching set. Now I'm going to make A. The envelope shows us absolutely everything we need to prepare for the pattern. So when we have a look at the pattern, the very first thing you need to be looking at once you've decided, right, I really like this design, this is what I need to go for. The first thing you need to check is the size. Is the size available for you? And it tells you on the front, it's the size in the US version, small to large, but you can also buy another version, small to extra large thing. So once we've decided which style we want to go for, as a beginner or an experienced sewer, you need to start thinking about the other parts, and everybody needs to look at this envelope to get the full information about what we need in preparation to create this garment. Now under the pattern number, it tells us how many pieces there are. So there are 14 pieces to this pattern. So if we know there are 14 pieces in the pattern, we can open up the envelope. So just ask the shop assistant if you may have a look at the pattern, and they should allow it. And what you can do is open the instruction sheet. We'll be looking at this in more detail later, so don't worry about that just for the moment. And take a look at this section here. So it says there 14 pieces given. So that's the waistcoat there. And what I need to do is figure out which of these are going to be the pieces that I need for the waistcoat, A. And I don't really have to do much working out because the pattern company have already labelled it up for me. So I have A, and I just look down the list and they've done it in alphabetical order actually. So all the pieces are numbered 1 to 14 for the 14 pieces, and I can see 1 is the front for A, 2 is the welt for A and for B, they're for A and for B, 3 is the back piece for A and B, 4 is the belt, so that's the buckle at the back, and then 5 is the buttonhole guide as well. Then 6 moves on to the collar, and then 7, 8, 9 move on to C, then D, and then E. So ask the shop assistant if you may have a look at the envelope and bring this out, and they should do that for you. They shouldn't have a problem. I've never had a problem, although I have heard that some shop assistants can be difficult, but if you go in there with confidence and know what you're doing, then they can trust you that you're not going to damage it. Or they know that, you know, if you ask them how many pieces are there and would they mind showing you the pieces. So for this pattern, we only need 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And I can tell you now that the guide is actually just a piece of paper that really shows you where we're going to put the buttonholes. So we're really only dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So it's really an easy project. Then just below that, it shows you a quick sketch of the reverse side of the project and what the back looks like. So I can see on here, if I do a close-up, you can see the back neck and the buckle and strap on the waistcoat. So for both A and B, the back looks exactly the same. Then you've got the back of the cummerbund and the bow tie and the tie. Okay. Right, so after we've done these sketches and know how many pieces that we're working with, and we're happy with that, we need to move on to the next section. Now, this section here is this section in over on this side. That's all written in French. This is all written in English. If you want to work in meters, you can sort of tally up the numbers over there and work out the meterage rather than the yardage, because we've got yards numbers like the 7/8 of a yard or 5/8 of a yard here, but we deal with 1.3 meters, 1.2 meters and 0.6 meters. A lot of you will find that a lot easier. Okay, but we're going to stick with the English side. Start from the top over here, and what we need to work out now, so this is for boys and men's. It's a lined vest, bow tie and cummerbund and ascot. Okay, so I'm calling it a tie, it's actually an ascot, so it's just a wrap over rather than a regular work tie. Then it moves on to the kind of fabrics simplicity suggests you purchase to make this garment. It tells us batiks, brocade, so I've got some brocade here, chambray, cotton types, damask, denim, gingham. So it lists all the different types of fabrics that you will need. It says extra fabric is needed to match plaids and stripes. Now again, it's an Americanism, isn't it? It's like tartan. So plaids are, you know, when you've got your checks like that. To match plaids, stripes and one-way design. So for example, if you choose a design with Thomas the Tank Engine on there, you don't want Thomas being upside down. If you're new to sewing commercial patterns, stick with a plain fabric or an any way which design, so something that isn't one way. Notions. So notions are things like your thread, your buttons, your zips, your interfacing, your snap fasteners. So that's what notions are. So notions are all the other bits and bobs that make up the garment. So it's not just the fabric now, we're dealing with everything else that you're going to need to make up this garment, and that's really important. So you'll probably need to go to a haberdasher's to buy some thread. I would suggest a Gutterman thread. I'm happy with Gutterman. Everything I've sewn with Gutterman seems to wash well. The colours stay. The threads have lasted on some of my clothes for years and years and years, and they've not, you can't see the thread becoming damaged. So not only is it good for washing again and again, it actually looks nice. So the luster of the thread stays. And that's really important to me when I'm spending money on a good quality fabric. Then I need to make sure that my top stitching is also going to look good. The last thing I need is the thread on my top stitching looking shabby. When you choose your thread, for example, so now I've got a grey and I've got a denim, which is a blue. I'm going to choose a thread that matches both. Now I can choose a grey. Now, for a project like this, grab 2 reels of cotton or polyester, sew wool. What you want to do is you want to choose a thread that gets lost on both. So I can't see that grey on this, which is going to be great. But I've also got to remember, I'm going to do some top stitching, the buttonholes, for example. So I want to make sure that I choose a nice thread that will complement this fabric so that when I've got my 4 buttonholes, they will look good. Now, when we're looking at threads, I've got 4 different shades of grey here, and I want to make sure that I choose the one that's right for my fabric. What I want to choose is a thread that disappears into my fabric. So I tend to go a shade darker. It's always better to go for a shade darker. A lighter shade will always show. So you can see that thread, and if that was a buttonhole, that really would shine big style. Then let's have a look at this one. There's another one that's again showing up, and another one here which shows up. So I've gone for something that you might think, oh, that's a little bit darker, but actually it disappears. So stick with that one. And as you can see, I don't have very much left on it, so I do need to pop down to the shops. Thread up. So that's going on my shopping list. So let's put that down. Thread, and I will buy 2 lots of thread for this project. So now let's carry on with the notions. So we've got the thread. Then it tells me I'll need 4 1/2-inch buttons for the boys' sizes and 4 5/8 buttons for the men's sizes. So I need 4 buttons, and I need to make sure that they're 5/8 of an inch. So see how that's imperial. If I was to go onto the French side, it says there you need 4 buttons of 1.3 centimeters for the boys, and you need 4 buttons 1.5 centimeters for men. So if I put there 1.5 centimeters, but we know that anyway, don't we? 5/8 of an inch is 1.5 centimeters. So that's what we need, 4 buttons which are either 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters, because you'll still find that shops and haberdashers still work on both, just like I do. The next thing we need is a 1-inch slide buckle for the back of the vest. So I need a 1-inch slide buckle. My writing's not very good. Buckle. So then it tells me what I need for C, and then it tells me what I need for D. So that's my shopping list. So I need 2 threads, 4 buttons, and a slide buckle for this project. I might have some of these things in already because I'm a bit of a hoarder. So have a little route around. It gives you an opportunity to have a look at your things, but don't get distracted because we need you to focus on this project. What we're going to do is go all the way down. It tells you the garment measurements. It only really needs you to measure the chest, because if anything else was important in the pattern, they'd mention it. To measure somebody for a waistcoat, we need to measure the chest. So grab your tape measure, bring it right round, and we're going just below the armpits at the fullest part, and your chest measures, if you relax your arms, relax them, we measure at 38 inches there. Thank you. My husband is a size 42 chest. So for him, I'm going to make the large. So if I put an arrow down there, then I know I'm going to follow the large. if I go all the way down this column, that the final pattern is going to be 47.5 inches on the chest. So actually, if I made the one smaller, which is the medium, it'll be 43.5 inches. Now we don't want it too, you know, you want at least 2 inches around the torso for comfort, because people have got to move around, they've got to stretch and they've got to bend. So working on the one below would be no good, but the 47.5 sounds massive. But we're going to give it a go. We're just going to go with it. We're not going to do any alterations on this pattern. We're just going to stick with following a commercial pattern. Right, so then the next thing we need to do, so we've established which size we're working with, then we look at the actual garment piece that we're making. Now we're making the vest, so I'm going to look at that section there. That's A and B vest. So what we need is 45 inches wide fabric, or a 60-inch wide fabric. If I go down along the large, I need to buy at least 1.5 yards of a 45-inch fabric, or 7/8 of a yard of fabric. So with the lining at 45 inches wide, we buy 1.25 yard. If you want to work that in meters, let's go all the way across there. Now it says petite, medium, grand. Then for men, it's petite, medium, grand. And we're going for grand. We're not going for the larger one. We're going for that one. So I need to follow that down. And I've got those 3 numbers there. So if we're working in meters, which most shops will be, it's 1.4 meters. Put that down. Or 0.8 meters if it's 150 centimeters wide, and so that's 115 centimeters, and that's 150 centimeters. And then lining, I need 1.2 meters, 1.2 meters, and that's again 115 centimeters wide. So let's just check that again. So we know the fabric we need to buy. So that tells us the fabrics we need. Just stick with an all-way design or a plain fabric like I'm doing on this project. So then we need to measure the person who's going to be wearing this. So I'm making it a large, beginning all the way down to see the garment measurements there. And the garment measurements only measures the chest there for A and B. Everything else, the ties and the cummerbund, are adjustable to fit all the different sizes. So you just really, the only part you need to measure anybody for this pattern is the chest, and the garment measurement for this size is going to be 47.5 inches. So if I'm going to make a large, then I need to highlight there the garment I'm making, and that garment piece is the vest. And in that section here, so if I highlight this box here, because that's what I'm making, it tells me about the vest, and it also tells me about the lining. And I need to know how much fabric I need to buy. And the reason there are 3 numbers is because your garment fabric might come on a roll that's 45 inches wide or on a 60-inch wide. If that's all confusing, you can use over here the meters. So we're going for the grand because this is all in French, and we're going to buy this amount of fabric. So if it's a shorter roll, you need to buy 1.4 meters of the main fabric. If it's the wider roll, which is 60 inches wide or 150 centimeters wide, you only need 0.8 of a meter. And then you need to buy the lining, which is 1.2 meters. If you're buying the lining in yards, it's 1.25 yard. So that's all we need for that part. And then we need to look at the next item on the list, interfacing. Now it says here you need 20 to 25 inches of lightweight fusible such as Pellon. Now, basically, a lightweight fusible interfacing is just iron-on interfacing. Pellon is a brand name. There's Vilene out there as well. I don't know about many others. We need 1 5/8 yard. Anything else do I need? So C is the cummerbund. I don't need to worry about that. D is the bow tie. Again, not worried. And the ascot is E. So there's my shopping list. So that's what you get from reading the back of the envelope. So thread. I need 2 threads. I'm going to take this one with me because I know this is a good colour and I've lost the sticker that goes on top to tell me which colour it is. I'll also take the fabric with me. So if I take the fabric with me, I can pull the threads off the ones on the rack and just compare notes. Okay. I'll take the fabric with me again because I want to buy 4 buttons. And those 4 buttons have got to be 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimetres. I need a slide buckle, 1 slide. And that slide buckle is either 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres. And I need interfacing, so light weight iron on interfacing, and I need 0.6 meters. Then I need my main fabric, and I'm going to write those 3 numbers down. So the 2 numbers, so I need either 45-inch wide, which is 115 centimeters. So I need either 1.5 yards, which is also 1.4 meters. If the fabric comes on a 60, the fabric I like, well actually I don't need to buy fabric, do I? But you need to know this. So if I'm buying a 60-inch wide fabric or 150 centimeters wide fabric, I need to buy 7/8 of a yard, which is equivalent to 0.8 meters. And my lining, which I have already bought, I need, if it's in 45-inch wide, which is 115 centimeters, I need to buy 1.25 yard, which is 1.2 meters. Now the interesting thing is you can actually buy lining on a 60-inch, which is 150 centimeters wide. It'd probably be that you need 0.6 meters in the wider fabric, but just stick with the lining to be around that same number, just for ease, because this fabric here that I've chosen, it actually, I think it does come on it came on a 60-inch. Just need to check it. So the lining isn't just a plain boring one tone silk polyester. It's actually this brocade that I've chosen. So as I've already got all the fabric, I don't need to visit a fabric shop. I just need to go straight to a haberdasher's. And interesting enough, I've already got the interfacing. I may already have a slide buckle. I may already have the buttons. It's definitely the thread I need to buy. So I need to go shopping for the next stage.